on up. Come on up.
At kids camp, I felt like God was calling me to be a pastor. I don't necessarily know if I'm supposed to be a kids pastor or like my dad, but who knows what God's plan. Also, we were praying on the second night, and I felt like God was really speaking to me. I felt awesome, and I felt like a new person. So I started to pray in tongues. What the heck was I saying? So I prayed for over like 16 people in my cabin, and I was really happy. Also speaking in tongues was like 30 minutes long. I don't know, but every night there was this woman who was a missionary from Argentina, and she preached every night, and she made me feel great. She was an amazing person of God. Her stories about missions, what she had to go through as a kid, was so there was this war in her cities, and she said every night instead of counting sheep, she would count bombs. I felt so bad for her. I have an amazing life, and I'm trusting God to keep that amazing life going. We always expect God to heal us and to do mostly everything. Like if I didn't want to try hard enough to win the kids cup, then usually we would blame it on God. But I realized that Jesus doesn't need to do everything for us. We expect God to heal, to do great things, but it's not always right away. We just got to be patient, believe, and He will. And He will. It's like the movie Onward. There's a pit that you do not want to fall in. And there's this kid who has a staff, and he just has to believe that he will step. He can go across. So he believes, and he steps on absolutely nothing. And he walks across. So it's not always going to be right away. We just have to be patient.
And that's why service got over on time this morning. You know, this weekend, Indiana Jones came back out. And a lot of times we remember some of the stuff from Indiana Jones. And one of the big things he did was he stepped out across that pit, right? And he couldn't see anything. He couldn't see anything there. But he took the step of faith. And he realized there was something there. And a lot of times we don't realize that God is right there, ready to hold us up, ready to handle all the things, all the weight we want to put on Him, until we take that step. In like nothingness. Anybody else? Anybody else? I don't want to miss you.
Take some credit here, okay? Sarah was talking about the kids being here, and I want you to know that I am the grandmother of these babies, and it's so wonderful to see the generations that come. There's me, and then there's Sarah, and then there's Abby, and then there's the little children. And what a blessing. And Trey. Nobody said anything about Trey. Trey. He's in the family. And what a blessing this young man is with these children. Families are so important. If you don't have a natural family, try to get involved someplace because we need each other. And I'm just proud as punch, as I say, to be the great-grandmother and to have seen these 4 generations.
Proud as punch. She was so proud she was talking to Jeff before she punched him in the eye. Oh, wait. Sorry, that's a different story. It's a different story. Guys, we may have made all that, but, my parents, Julie, made this, so technically they made all that, right? It's amazing what happens generation after generation when you choose to plant the right seeds. When you choose to plant the right seeds, you get the harvest that you want. You've got to know what that harvest is before you do it. You can't plant seeds unless you know what the harvest is that you want. So the kids are going to go learn about that right now. Kids are going to go learn about that harvest right now. And, oh, that's right. We got to take up the offering. Those buckets back there somewhere? I mean, we had them out for first service, so we'll get those out for the second service. There's a lot of ways to give at Chapel. You can give in the bucket. You can give online. You can text to give. All those things are easy to set up. If you've not been here very often yet and you are not part of the loop, but you want to know what's going on at Gardner Faith Chapel, you can just text the word loop to 913-379-2929. And you can add yourself to the loop. You can also then, later on, it'll send you a little note that tells you all the other places you can add yourself where you belong. So we don't have to text everything, right? We can tell the guys, hey, we're meeting for game night on this night. Matter of fact, I was talking to Steve the other day. He wanted to shoot, so we're not going to text the loop, hey, we're going to go shooting. We're going to text the guys group, we're going to go shooting. Right? So we want you to know what's going on. We want to be able to remind you. Today was the first 10:30 service. Today was the first 10:30 service. So all of our services now will be 9 and 10:30. We're excited about that. I'm excited to eat early because I really like food. As a matter of fact, I like it. I had to lose $200 this morning. First time I've ever lost a weight loss competition. Yeah. And even though I lost, I'm not angry. If I would Twinkies, that'd probably help. And I don't eat the dog snacks. Gavin dog snacks. Oh, well, yeah, I do eat Kaju food. But Kaju only eats chicken. So it's, baked chicken. So I do eat that particular dog food. I did lose, though, today. I did lose, but I credit this competition, 7 months, down 3 pounds. Yeah, it's not great. But I am not 280 today, thanks to this competition, because odds are I probably would be. This competition. So I was worth the $200. I lost, but congratulations, Josh Shaw was our winner. He actually entered the competition just to help motivate those of us who needed to lose weight. He actually needs to lose, but the rest of us were kind of flakes. So with all the money, and he is going to use that money to build us an awesome Gaga Ball pit outside so that our kids can come enjoy Gaga Ball on a regular basis. Movie night the other night, and the kids didn't even watch the movie. They just played Gaga Ball. And there was about 20 kids in there the whole time. And so he said, we need one of those Gaga Ball pits. And I wasn't planning on winning. When all of us losers have completely, we will be doing the Gaga Ball pit. So it will be awesome. This year, I totally pulled the wrong file. That wouldn't be good. This year, we are talking about planting seeds. The family farm. The family farm. What you plant is what grows. Now, we've discovered that exactly a great farmer, but I am learning. I am learning, right? We have a picture of the corn that I started growing in my backyard. This was the previous picture. This was the last update that you had. Today, it's like this. So, yes, I'm years on it and everything. Like, they're not full grown yet. I have no idea to tell when they're full grown. Hopefully, mother-in-law can help me figure that out, because I will want to eat this corn. I may not even want to share this corn because there's not that much of it. Same way reason you don't want to share your Twinkies, right? I might 1 ear of corn. She does give me those salt every time I come over, and they are pretty good. Now, we also have a picture of my wife's pumpkin plant. Now, my wife's pumpkin plant, probably 2-3 weeks after I planted it, it started out even smaller than this. And this is a picture of my spaghetti. Yes, this was my spaghetti squash. I was amazed at how quickly it grew. It was just this little tiny, when we picked it up, it was a little 3-inch cup thing. And it's crazy because now these plants look like this. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that nuts? Just how much these things have grown. All because we decided to go to the flower store out on South Broadway and buy these little plants, and instead of leaving them in there, we put them in the soil, overwatered them a lot. Fortunately, they take a lot, and our yard is slanted, so all the extra water goes down and drowns my spaghetti squash. Or not my spaghetti, the squash that we planted. Those did not make it. But these have done amazing. It's been great. We have this promise from God about planting and reaping. And what we plant will grow. What we plant will grow. Now, I'm a great farmer, but I have a good excuse. My dad was a preacher. And he didn't plant anything. Well, the seeds he planted were of a different sort. Grass seed, our yard was weeds, and we just mowed them. We didn't plant vegetables. We had wild onions that grew out front of the park. Who knows how they got there? We had some mint leaves that they just, appeared. And then we had tulips, because tulips just keep coming back. They just keep growing, right? We had a row of tulips, and as soon as they bloom, we'd mow them over. The extent of our seeds and our planting and our farming growing up, that was it. I didn't learn that from my dad, but my friend Jeremy, he had a dad who studied ancient Indian culture. He studied all this stuff, and so they grew their own food. He built his own log cabin. Awesome. Took him forever to finish it, like 20 years. But he built it. Pantry. And they built it into the earth, and it kept everything cool enough so that all their canned goods would stay good all year round. They would grab stuff off the shelf. That I would go to their house and help harvest potatoes. Sun up to sundown. We were digging in the field, getting dirty, pulling all the potatoes out of the ground. It was cool for a city boy like me. Grew up in the big city of Oberlin, Kansas. 1,400 people. It was great. Boy got to go to the farm and really hands dirty. It's great. Extent of my gardening or farming. But I have other friends. I have friends like Austin Noakes. He does a ton. He does, way more than a ton of hay. That's just one bale, right? He does so much hay. He has guys come over and work for Africa. He does a ton of hay. His kids have been driving giant machinery since the time they could sit on his lap. They know when planting season is. They know when fix up the machinery season is. Dad's going to have to be getting up at 2 in the morning because the humidity's just right to go bundle the hay. Because if you bundle it and the humidity is right, it can spontaneously combust. You got to watch all this stuff. You got to know all these things. They picked up more about farming from watching this than I will probably ever know. I'm learning how to grow a couple of things, but they learned by example. They learned through experience. What you learn in your family is based on experience and imitation. That statement scares some of you a little bit because your experience hasn't been that great. Either your past experience or your current experience is something you don't want to be a part of your family. Some of you have very different, be reserved, might be very affectionate. Some of you have loud families. Some of you have quiet. You guys know which one mine is. Some of your families have been very committed to church. Every time the doors were open, they were there. Others of you, church was never a priority. Maybe you never went. But we all have these different families. We have these different families. But some of you are a little afraid that what you have seen and experienced is the only thing that you'll be able to reproduce. And unfortunately, it can be the case if you aren't careful. My agenda in this series is to challenge you to build a strong, healthy family. I want you to plant good seeds and reap an eternal harvest. Lifelong followers of Jesus Christ. Lifelong followers of Jesus Christ. And these principles apply to all of you. No matter what your family looks like now. These principles apply to all of you. We have this great promise from God. Do not be deceived. Right? Don't be misled. You can't the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Back the question, what are we planting? What are we planting? Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature. We live in America. That's pretty normal, right? Those who live, verse 8 says, only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death. Decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life. From the Spirit. Not get tired of doing what is good or of planting good seeds. Because at just the right time, we will reap a harvest if we do live up. Have you ever had kind of the yard that you just kind of gave up on? Like, I can't. When Abby and I were raising money to go to China, we had a guy call us and say, I need you to clean out horse pens. He didn't have horses, but he had horse pens. And they were closed and locked, and no way into them with a big machine. So the weeds were literally over my head. You know the kind of weeds that get over your head? They're really hard to deal with. You and a machete. You and a machete, and by the time you get them all cut down, then you got to move them all. Move them over the edge of the fence. We were there for a very long time because there was 6 horse pens. Get tired and give up. But when you give up, your life starts looking like those horse pens. Because when you're not planting the right seeds, the wrong ones start to take root because somebody is always planting in your life. Somebody is always planting in your life. Friends, your family, your television. Somebody is always planting in your life. And if you're not careful, plant will overshadow what you plant. I planted those wildflowers in my garden. And I have no idea what wildflowers they are, but they have giant leaves and teeny flowers. And the giant leaves are overshadowing all of the rest of the garden. They're overshadowing the tiny little pepper plants that I have, and they're not getting any sun. And they're overshadowing portions of the tomato plant and the peas. And so all of those are trying to get up and find some giant leaves on the wildflowers are drowning everything else out. What can happen to us if we're not careful about the seed we plant? And I want to talk about today is how do you not reproduce bad seeds that were planted in you? How do you not reproduce the bad seeds that were planted in you? How do you avoid passing negative things down to the next generation? The things started in your family, how do you keep from doing that? Your family model wasn't very healthy. For some, it was very unhealthy and even dysfunctional. The model's been passed on to you. You desperately want to stop the cycle. You're not sure how. You don't know how to stop it. Some of you had an angry perfectionist for a father, mother. It's amazing in some of the Asian cultures how perfectionistic those parents can be. The they put into those children to be perfect. Some of you have alcohol for generations in your history. You might have a family history that has a problem rarely showing love or affection. There is an artist that my son listens to, and he says, we rarely say I love you because his parents never did. Your parents' parents never did, so we don't either. You might come from a broken home. My mom was fourth generation parents. The cycle. For some of you, it's even more serious. It might be physical violence in the home. Culture of damaging words. Assaulting each other, breaking each other's character down. How do you end that? How do you become different than your parents? I think that's probably the number one fear of people, especially as they come to the age of getting ready to get married, is how can I not be like my parents? Now, I am not a counselor and I am not a psychologist, but I do have gray hair. I do have gray hair. And I've learned some things from people who have more gray hair or just less hair than me. About how to do that. Let me share some principles with you. Number one, honestly admit the weaknesses in your family background. Now notice the your is capitalized, right? There's a reason for that. It's really easy for me to see the weaknesses in my wife's family background. We often are quick to point out those particular weaknesses, right, in our spouse's family background. Well, your family, it's a totally different thing when it comes to pointing out the weaknesses in our own family background. But that's the conversation that needs to take place. You have to recognize what weaknesses are. Abby has to have a conversation with Trey about the weaknesses that came from her family background. Weakness. What? It is not disloyal to recognize and admit the weaknesses in your family's approach to life. It's not. Recognizing that and the effect that it has on your way of communicating and relating, the key to moving beyond it. Key to moving beyond it. And every family is different, right? We talked about that a little bit ago. Some people are savers, some are spenders. And some are spenders. You know which one's which. It's usually pretty obvious. The spenders are the one who said, let's have a big wedding. Furniture. Right? Or let's have a big wedding and then go get furniture because it's 18 months, same as cash. It's easy to tell the difference. Affectionate versus reserved. This week, Gavin was very popular at camp. He walked around, he was giving everybody hugs. One of the guys who goes to my dad's church said, I can tell whose family that kid came from. Dad walks around with a shirt that says, need a hug, need a prayer, ask me. He's always giving hugs to people at church. He's always giving hugs to people everywhere. Gavin was doing the same thing. You have these affectionate families who are prone to give a hug versus the families who didn't show a lot of affection. How does that relate in your family? How do you deal with those differences? How does dealing with those differences affect your family? What are the changes you want to make? Do you want to keep the same as your family background had, or do you want to choose to change them until you acknowledge them? Some families are loud when they argue. Have it out. Make sure the neighbors can hear you. Some people run in the next room and wait until you're done and you realize you apologize. What happens? What happens when those habits, those things that your family used to do, when they compete with each other? When you have these opposites who get together, you have to recognize these things. You have to look at them and admit those weaknesses. Some families were committed to church. They were there every day, every time the doors were open. And others, like I said earlier, church wasn't a thing. Showing up was good enough, if ever. If you don't address those differences and figure out the heart you want, you can't change it. You can't begin planting the faithfulness. We need to have this conversation on the way home today, on the way home from the hog roast, not on the way to the hog roast. It'll make a much smoother roast. Yeah. On the way home, have the conversation. But don't point out the weaknesses in their background. Talk about yours. That's one of the conversations only you can talk about. Otherwise, it does not go well, ever. It does not work well to talk about the weaknesses in your spouse's family background. Number 2, the thing that you can do to keep from passing this on, this cycle generation, is don't focus on what you won't be, focus on what you will be. Don't focus on what you won't be, focus on what you will be. For example, figure out what you want to become, not what you never will be. But that's what we tend to do, right? So instead of saying, I won't be like my father, that's a I won't be. Instead of saying, I won't be harsh like my father, instead say, I will be gentle and affirming with my family. I will understand and loving, or I will be understanding and loving in moments of failure, and I will celebrate moments of success. action steps. Instead of just saying, I never will, you say, I will be. Because we have this principle in life that we tend to towards what we focus on. We tend to move towards what we focus on. If you're driving down the road and somebody points at the cows over in the and you're looking at them for a little bit, which direction do you tend to pull? You tend to pull the direction that you're looking. If you're down here searching for some coins for the toll that's coming up and you're like down here and you got here, you're starting to drift drop over into the lane or into the median because you tend to drift in the direction that you look. Sometimes when you say, I will be, for instance, I won't be cold and distant parents. I won't be. Have you intended to do that before? You tell yourself you'll never be like you do the exact same thing. Instead of saying, I won't be like this and focusing on negative, focusing on what you don't want to be, focus on what you will be. Say, I love you. I will say I love you to every member of my family every day. I will hug them often. I will verbally express how much they mean to me. Instead of focusing on, I won't be this, I will do these things. I will be this. Instead of saying, I will never get a divorce, say, I will do whatever it takes to keep my marriage and family strong. I will get annual marriage checkups. I will attend classes. I will attend retreats and seminars, Wednesday night electives. Proactive in keeping our relationship growing. Because you drift in the direction that you focus on. So focus on what you will be instead of what you will be. The problem is the negatives have absolutely no steps. And as much as the sentiment is great that you will never get a divorce, unless you're focused on what you will become, you will end up where you don't want to. That leads me to the third thing you need to do. You need to connect to a positive role model. Connect to a positive role model. Positive role model, right? Isn't it interesting that people we from sometimes? Yeah, I had this guy me up one time and got this stock with electrical cars. So I bought this stock on electrical cars, about $700. And I thought, why did I take it? I was like, why did I take advice from that guy? Because he took advice from somebody on YouTube. Isn't it amazing the people we take advice on YouTube? We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know any of that stuff. But it's interesting who we take advice from unmarried people on how to have marriage. We take advice from people who've never had a healthy relationship on how we should. You see it in movies all the time. You're watching this person who still isn't married, still doesn't have a. Hitch is a great example for me, right? In the movie Hitch, he is explaining to people they should get the person of their dreams. He's single. And he gives horrible advice. I mean, it sounds good. But in the end, he realizes that the thing that made this person was the opposite of everything he was telling them. He was doing that. How many times do we do the same thing? Advice on marriage from people with multiple marriages. You might think, well, I've been through a lot. I probably learned a thing or two. That's true. But would you rather take advice from somebody with 17 failed, or who's been in 17 accidents, how to drive, or somebody who's never been in a wreck? Find a positive role model. Find a positive role model. You know when I made the most money? I took stock advice from had money. He said, put away money early and often, and don't touch it. That advice has generated $40,000 because I put it away early and I put it often and I didn't touch it. Find positive role models. If you are looking for somebody who's good, looking to be a good father who raises children who follow Christ, find somebody who has children who listen and follow Christ. Find it. Find that person. If you want somebody, or if you want to be an understanding and a flexible mom, find somebody who appears to be an understanding. Take them out to dinner and be like, you look like you're an understanding, flexible mom. I want to be one. How do I do that? Because you can't grow something that has not been seen by you. If you don't have the seeds, you can't grow it. You've got to connect with a positive role model. If you want to raise kids who are lifelong followers of Jesus, find somebody who has done it. Our last, in our last church, I was having a conversation with our associate pastor, and she said, I was talking this week, and they grounded their kids from youth group. They let their kids stay home on Sunday morning because they didn't want to come. She said, why are people in the church whose kids have grown up to serve God? They bring them to church every Sunday morning. They bring them to church every Wednesday night. They don't care what they want. They're planting seeds. Seeds of faithfulness. Seeds to say this matters. Find someone who has done it well and go ask for advice. You want a healthy marriage that lasts a lifetime? Go find somebody who's had a marriage that has lasted a lifetime. Hey, guys, I'd like to take you out to eat. I want to pick your brain. I want to become what you are, and I need to know how to do it because I can't plant what I am. This one you're not going to like much, but it's super important. Ask for help. Ask for help. If your lawnmower was broke, you'd get it fixed, right? You'd get it fixed because, well, I don't know about you, but my grass grows about as fast as I need it cut. Because my neighbor at us when we mow our lawn, because he says, now I have to mow it. I have to mow it because now my yard's the longest one on the block. You want to be better than your neighbor, so you would get your lawnmower fixed. If your computer broke, go buy another one, especially if you're my mother-in-law. She buys another one every 2 years or so. She's very good at computers. We're not sure what it is. I think it's in her DNA. Or as Utopia says, your Dena. If your phone, you would go get another one, except for me, because my wife keeps telling me to get another one, and I keep living with a 2-hour battery life. But if it didn't, I would go get a new one, and so would you. Because it's important for you to be able to communicate and to talk. And it's important for me to have something that goes off and says, hey, idiot, you've got an appointment in 10 minutes. I need to download those exact words, and put that in there for my calendar, right? You'll record it. If your car was broke, you would go fix it because you to get around. You're used to the freedom of going where you want and when you want it. It's important to you. But sometimes we don't take the problems in our family to the same level of importance. We have issues in our family. We decide, I don't want anybody to know we're having problems, so we're just going to be real quiet about it. And it'll go away. It'll go away. You decide, I know that we're having problems in our marriage, but I think we'll work through it. If your relationship skills got you to the point where you're at now, what makes you think your relationship skills are good enough to deal with it? Get help. Get help. Ask for help. Don't wait. This thought is in your head. If we just don't talk about it, it'll be fine. But you wouldn't do that with your lawnmower, right? If your lawnmower, would you just set it in the shed and wait for it to fix itself? If your computer had a blue screen, just put it in the corner and say, all right, now Walt, don't say anything, tick the computer. We're just going to be real quiet. We're going to say nice things about electronics, and we're going to hope the computer starts working again. Right? If the belt comes off your car in the driveway and you see it laying in the driveway and you can't put the car in gear, you're not going to walk out and say, all right. Now, Dana, today we're going to talk about how we're going to put the in the garage tonight. We're going to take good care of it. We're going to be real quiet around it. And we're just going to make sure we don't make it mad. And tomorrow morning, everything's going to be fine. We're going to come, we're going to put it in reverse. We're going to go to work. It's all good. Do that with any of those things. But when it comes to your relationship, to your family, isn't that what we do? That's exactly what we do. I know that sound's been going on for 2 years. That knocking in the engine or whatever, but we're just going to ignore it. I know that changed oil light has been for a while now, but we just can't to get it fixed right now. I talk to a lot of couples, and they're like, well, we can't afford therapy. Can you afford divorce? Have you looked up divorce attorney costs? Don't raise your hand. It won't help your relationship. Let me just help you. Divorce attorney starts at around $5,000. Therapist starts around $100. We have one here who probably even go a little if we really have to. I think you can afford therapy. You for sure can't afford divorce. Elevate your family to a degree. That's where it belongs. If you need help, go get it. Come get it. Most of the time, you wait till the point where it's an emergency. You call a pastor and you say, it's an emergency. Get over here right now, which usually translates, been having trouble for a really long time. But we didn't get help. Now the house is on fire. Please come now. Why wait? Why wait? If you are starting to recognize the cycles from your family's history in family, don't wait to get help. Reach out. Get it now. A lot of times we don't see the issues in ourselves. Begin seeing the issues show up in our children. We don't even realize we have a problem until we start seeing it show up in our kids. And that's why it's a part of a family like this. Because if you trust somebody enough to say, hey, keep me on track. Number 5 is offer accountability. Offer accountability. Say, hey, I want this as the harvest. I want to spend time with my kids. Tell somebody, hey, ask me how much time I spent with my family this week. Say, hey, ask me. Did I give my kids hugs this week? Did I let them know that I loved them? Did I say it first? Offer accountability. One of my friends had a guy come to him. He said, look, I am scared to death watching my friends get divorces. He says, I want you to get in my face if you see my marriage, and I want you to tell me about it so that I don't end up that way. I am giving you permission to hold me accountable. Offer accountability. It's a key to growth and change. Stand up with me today. There's so many things being planted in our hearts and in our lives. Some of you look at your life and you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to stop. I can't. I feel so bad for the seeds I've already planted. I feel so bad I've already planted in my family and I don't know how to change it. And I'm so overwhelmed that I don't even know where to start. There's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that you can do. Number 1 is repent. God, I'm sorry. Sorry for the seeds that I've planted. Repentance means changing, turning around and deciding not to do that anymore, to begin doing the right thing. The second thing is ask your family forgiveness. This is an important step. It's not every bad seed planted is a sin, simply unwise choices. If it is sin, you need to deal with it. It's a huge step to forgiveness for your family, but often this reaps immediate rewards because they know and you know. The third thing is to forgive yourself. Because we steer towards what we focus on, and if all we can focus on is and how we've planted bad seeds and forgiving ourselves and moving forward, we model that for them and they'll pick up. So forgive yourself. Don't let it trap you with destructive thoughts and behavior patterns to just more seeds, more bad seeds being planted. And number 4, be realistic. Families say, if only I'd planted good seeds, everything would be wonderful. It would be true, but it might not be. When good, godly parents have kids who turn their back on, good, faithful Christian wives have husbands, and even good, godly Christian husbands have wives who, because we all have a free will. We all have a free will. You might not like things that you have planted, but instead of living in the past, start good seeds now. It is never too late to start planting good seeds. I know you wish you planted them sooner, but you didn't, and you can't change that. Start now. It says, don't get tired of doing what is good. Don't get tired of planting those good seeds. You can change your harvest by changing the seed you plant, and it's not easy, and it probably won't be quick. And you see the results as fast as my garden. But don't give up, because at the right time you will reap a harvest if you don't give up. God, I just ask that you would be with each heart in this room. There are some cycles in this room that need to be broken. If that's you and there's a cycle that you want broken in your life and your family and your future generations, just want you to slip up your hand and say, that's me. I need a cycle broken. I need a cycle broken in my life, in my family. That's you. There's hope this morning.